um, the ignition coils are removed, and so it only goes one way. If you feel that it's not going in as you try to remove the ignition coils, you just want to make sure you turn it around or hold it there such that it goes around it. And I'm not showing on the passenger side. I'll show you just a couple of the harder ones closest to the firewall or to the cabin. This is the passenger side, so just to show you the combination of extensions and swivel sockets I'm using. And once again, if you have an electric ratchet or an air ratchet, it makes it, or a gun, so much easier, because you have to keep turning the spark plugs quite a ways. I always use anti-seize, copper anti-seize for it really helps a lot, and next time you remove the plugs. So just a very thin application of it is sufficient. And you want to turn the new, they're pre-gapped, by the way. All of these spark plugs are pre-gapped, so you don't need to worry about that. But you want to turn each plug by hand a few times before you start to use a gun. And so that's what I'm doing now. Don't drive the car, even though the Mercedes-Benz one sets dry and it's fast setting, but what I would recommend is leave it overnight. Don't drive the car for 8 hours or so. Just let it dry and cure. So I'm using the 1.5 combination of and I'll show you in a few minutes, but I'm using, as it gets closer to the firewall, you cannot use extensions even. So maybe you can use a 1.5 inch extension. The very last spark plug, I don't think you can use anything besides the socket and maybe the 1.5 inch extension. And if you want to spend a little money, you can get a little more, just a few bucks more, spark plug sockets for Mercedes-Benz that has the swivel part embedded in the socket. And I'm sure you can. I haven't looked at it recently, but if you go to Amazon.com, you should be able to find plenty of solutions where this part would be a lot easier. But again, it takes a little time to do it, so just depends on how much you value your time. So the application of the anti-seize, the copper anti-seize, it's just very thin. Just turn the plug all around on your finger one time, and that's it. Squeezing or pressing, and that's enough that it will come out next time. a lot easier, not seize. I guess that's why they call it anti-seize. Because the temperatures inside there are just tremendous. And it's the temperature, so you know, same with exhaust bolts, you know, exhaust pipes. All the bolts attached to, you know, close to exhaust pipes, they get hot, and so you have to use anti-seize on those too, or else you'll have a hard time removing them. So this is the combination that worked for those two before the last one. And the last one, pretty much just the wrench, the 1.5 inch extension, and the socket. That's about all the room you have. On the driver's side, you have to use a longer extension and a swivel socket. There's just no way you can even get that far there. Now, one other thing, I think it's also another good or best practice is to remove a spark plug and install a spark plug, as opposed to removing all of them and installing the new set all at once on each bank or each side. Simply because, and of course, before you remove the spark plugs, you wanna, if you have shop air gun, to just blow air all around, especially into the cavities where the spark plugs go. If you don't have an air gun, then if you have, of course, a home vacuum cleaner, you can use that to suck out any debris caught up there. You don't want anything to get into the spark plug holes when the spark plugs are out, and that's the reason I'm saying or recommending that you remove one spark plug, maybe two at a time, remove and replace. But anyways, it's up to you. Just a recommendation. Sometimes I get impatient too. It's I don't know how much time you can save, but you know, I've removed 3 or 4 and replaced 3 or 4 at a time in the past. But it's probably better. This day it wasn't that breezy or windy, so I could have done more. But if it's, for example, the pollen season, if it's dusty or windy, then it makes more sense to remove one spark plug and replace it one at a time. So in our torque kit, you do need another extension. So those were the hardest on the passenger side. This is the driver's side, starting with the closest one or the last one, closest to the firewall, to the cabin. You need a long extension to get to it. And then the next two may be second hardest, followed by the next two, and then it becomes a lot easier. And you want to be careful as you remove, unless your socket is magnetized. They do sell sockets, spark plug sockets, that have magnets or other means by which to hold the plug. So you just want to be careful as you remove, and also as you put the new plugs in, that you don't let it fall, or else it would make for more time to jack up the car. And then because you have the covers underneath, and so if anything drops, it falls, it will go to those covers, and then the only way to get them would be to jack up the car and then remove the covers from underneath, just to recover the tool you have lost or the spark plug. And then of course torque, and you can torque each spark plug as you put it in. So you'll have to try different combinations depending on what tools and sockets and extensions you have. But that's the combination that worked for me for the next four besides the one closest to the firewall. And the other thing, as you just noticed, is to first put in the spark plug socket and the extension and inside, and then attach the wrench to it. So here I'm removing two at a time. Now, while you're watching this, how if how often, how frequently to replace the spark plugs, or what's the mileage of this car? Last it was done on this car at 70,000 miles, and right now the car has 137,000 miles. So you can keep the original spark plugs for up to 100,000 miles, but again, it's better to replace them probably about every 70,000 miles or so, and you'll really, I mean, you'll notice distinctly how much better the car drives afterwards. So, and I'm going to show you the difference between the two. So minimally, you want to set the gap, reset the gap, because if you go that many miles without replacing the plugs, chances are that the gap will get larger. So minimally, if you don't want to replace the plugs, and they can get expensive, of course. I think these are, I don't know, $7, $8, maybe $6 a piece. I forget, but I'll have a link to where I got them. 8-cylinder car, each cylinder fired by 2 plugs. That's a total of 16 spark plugs. So even at $6 is close to $100 US dollars. And and there are more expensive plugs. You don't need, other than the one that I'm recommending, the one that came with the car. Some may claim that you'll get much better performance out of this type of spark plug or that type, and more often than not they're a lot more expensive, but you don't need to get any of those. Just the regular double platinum Bosch spark plug is perfect for these cars. And as you can see here, the gap between the new one and the old one, you can see the difference. And then finally, with even with the tubes that connect to the valve cover and the MAF, as well as these coil plugs, having some silicone spray comes very handy. It makes the job of pressing the coils back in a lot easier. So use the same wrench that you pulled the coil plugs out to also press them back in, just like that, and wait to hear a distinct popping sound, unless you hear that the coil is not set properly, therefore not making proper electrical contact, which means that you could be running on fewer cylinders or get an engine light on. So you want to make sure that you have a good connection, and the only way to do that is to press it all the way in, listen to that pop sound, and then by hand trying to pull it out, and you shouldn't be able to. So like I said in the beginning of the video, you'll see A and B markings on the valve cover. So the A is the wire that's closest to you, or the coil that is closest to you, and B is the one that is closest to the valve cover, to the engine. So A always goes towards front of the car, B towards the firewall, or towards the cabin, or towards the back of the car. Doesn't matter passenger or driver side. So keep that in mind. Yet better, if you don't want to keep track of all of that, take a video, take a photo, or do some markings, whatever that makes sense to you, so that you know how to put them back together. And as you put the new ones in, it helps to put aside or even drop the old coil pack one way or another, just to make room for, so that you can see where the wrench goes and how you press it in. So turn it until you find the right position where you have enough leverage to press it in. So A goes towards the front, and B towards the back of the car. Torque these to 8 Newton meters, or 70.8 inch-pounds. These are T30 torques, or they could also be T25. But if you want to work on Mercedes Benzes, you need to have a set covering all the common ones. If the plug doesn't go in, then the red rubber shielding may have been misplaced. Just turn around and it will go in. I'm showing once again how to remove it. So the transmission holder, I believe this is probably a 10 millimeter bolt. I don't have the torque value for it, just hand tighten it. I'll try to find that and post it in the description if I can, but no big deal. I mean, there is some vibration here, but hand tightening should be sufficient. Could be 10 millimeters, I'm not sure. The coil packs too, there's a contact surface back of the coil, the one attaching to the case, to the cover. Clean those as well. I mean, all around, because you know they get dirty and oily, and so either with an air gun or with a shop towel, or you know, you can even remove the coils and with an electric parts cleaner clean the electrical points, and with brake parts cleaner, you know, all around. But you don't have to. I mean, just with a towel, dry towel, and air gun, you should be able to clean these. Okay. So this is the driver's side, and the same concept applies here. And I'll fast forward this point. So and that's it. I hope you liked the video. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.